Kagan, under Virginia's law, the 36,000 members would be considered a large insurance group. Insurance premiums could be set as a whole rather than basing rates on Virginia's individual or small group pools.
Health insurance should be available to as many people as possible for at a price point that people can afford, and that's simply what we're trying to accomplish here.
Martin Johnson is the Chief Executive Affairs Officer with the Virginia Association of Realtors. He says the law was created after a survey found about 20% of its members are uninsured.
I think that people that go without every day probably live life in a very panic-stricken state. They are but a cancer diagnosis or a major injury away from probably financial ruin.
Because they're independent contractors, unless they have a spouse with insurance or are a retiree of the state or federal government, their only option is to get insurance from the federal exchange through the Affordable Care Act.
The premiums are very high on the exchange and really put people in that very precarious situation of having to make a financial decision of whether they want to take the risk to go without or to go with.
Regardless, federal law trumps state law, and it was determined by the federal government this policy makes it impossible for insurers to comply with reforms to the Affordable Care Act because of how large the group is.
Because it's a federal conflict, the federal court system will be able to overrule anything that the state has passed.
NBC 29's legal analyst A.C. Riemann says the only way for a different outcome is if the Commonwealth decided to sue the federal government.
That would be a case where the federal government would have exclusive jurisdiction over that hearing. A party can ask the U.S. Supreme Court to review that decision, and ultimately that would be their path forward if they can't reach any type of agreement on this matter.
Johnson says he's unsure of the correct path forward, but he won't stop until he finds a solution for his members.
It is one that is very personal to our members, both that have insurance and those that don't. Those that do understand the significance of that, and obviously those that don't, have to wake up every day and hope and pray that diagnosis doesn't come through.
We reached out to Governor Glenn Youngkin's team for comment, and his spokesperson Macaulay Porter says he disagrees with the Biden administration's position that real estate professionals and brokers cannot be considered business owners, and that is why he signed the bill, which received bipartisan support, into law. Live in the studio, Jacob Phillips, NBC 29 News at 6.